All right, what's good? What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another one of my live streams, Men's Value Live. So I guess it's going to be the official title of kind of my live streams. Who knows? Maybe in the future I might have different categories of different ones, depending on the topic. But as of right now, I think it's probably makes it most simple just to keep it as Men's Value Live because I make the Men's Value tips now twice a week. So every Sunday and Wednesday, I just released my newest one, number 47. So check it out on my Instagram. But I will do that twice a week. I'll try to stream twice a week as well. But right now I'm live on IG and then of course YouTube. So for those of you on Instagram, make sure to go to my YouTube link. I'm gonna try to funnel everything to YouTube. Have the algorithm work in my favor. So if you're on IG, I'll constantly do it. Check my most recent story. That has the link to my YouTube stream in my story. So go to YouTube. All right. I did a little bit of research and I think I'm able to share my screen. Pop out dashboard. There we go. All right. I can select stream, share, no stream marker. Oh, I didn't know I can make stream markers. So I guess that'll be nice for because I add timestamps to the end of my videos every single time. I could have sworn there was a little share my screen. Luckily, don't have to share my screen for this live, but still, it would be really nice if I could. And literally everywhere I looked, share. No, this is share the link. Well, maybe one of these days I'll figure it out. Granted, today was relatively busy. Obviously, hit the gym in the morning, as always, and then I went to work. Pretty busy at work with all the stuff that's going on. And then right after work, I got a fresh cut. So shout out to my barber, Jacob. And so I went straight from my haircut to here. I had to finish up making my men's value tip number 47, which I just recently posted right before this. And now I'm streaming. And then after that, I'm going to make a Buff Asian post. I'm trying to post there daily. And shout out to my fitness page. If you want some fitness content, whether it be, I've been recently posting like superset ideas, different underrated exercises that not a ton of people do. Everyone knows their traditional bench, squat, deadlift, lateral raise, bicep curls, tricep extensions, and those kind of things. But there's a lot of different exercises that are great auxiliary exercises. I'm a big proponent of obviously just the normal compound exercises, but there's a lot of auxiliary exercises that help supplement those compound lifts. And there's a lot of compound lifts that a lot of people don't really know about either. So follow my Buff Asian page. I should put the link into the description of my streams, and then on my Instagram, it should be in my bio as well. So, what I wanted to do, all right, for this is going to be exclusive, unfortunately, for my Instagram people, just because I have a handheld camera. But this is kind of like my setup, and as I move to Austin, obviously my setup's going to change, but it's nothing too crazy. So, sorry, YouTube, you might not hear me for a little bit, but this is kind of like my setup. Obviously, at my desk, and got my two laptops. My new laptop obviously has a way better camera webcam on it. I eventually need to invest in a actual webcam. Got my lights. Normally that's on a tripod, but I have that tripod on my gym bag. These are my notes, and then I have another screen in case I need to pull something up or look something up. So we'll see how that develops and changes over time as I move places. And I really do need to get a mic for my phone whenever I do my men's value tips, just because I don't think I can use this mic. So this is the mic I stream with. I don't think I can use this with my phone unless I have some sort of adapter, a USB to Lightning adapter. But at that point, I might just get specifically a mic for my phone. So just because I've been filming it recently and it doesn't pick up my voice very well, and I don't want to have people just have to crank up the volume on their when they're watching it on Instagram. So I think I'll probably get that in the next week or so. Another thing to do, but the grind continues, and we'll see. But I enjoy doing this stuff, so it's all right. It's my passion project. So today's topic, we're gonna hop into today's topic. So how to overcome victim mentality. I mean, that this has been a really big topic in the news just in the past, I'd say 4 to 5 years, potentially even longer, maybe a decade. But it's a lot of stuff that you see on social media nowadays of people pandering to different stuff and people protesting for various different stuff. And it's the world has become very much divided, whether politically or in any other way. I mean, sports wise, work wise, values, morals. A lot of people are divided on a lot of stuff. And granted, I think that division has been existent over centuries, over tens of years, over decades. And social media and the internet is kind of a new thing. So because of social media and the internet, news is can be reachable in an instant, in seconds, milliseconds. Rather back in the day, news traveled very slowly. So you may not know something for weeks for or months at a time, or maybe even years, depending on how far away it's coming from. So because we can get instant information nowadays, as it happens real time, I think we get a lot of the bad stuff and a lot of the good stuff as well. But that causes division in people, and people like to blame other people, the government, and just anything but themselves. And overall, where there might be stuff that isn't necessarily your fault and maybe the fault of other factors outside of yourself, but generally I think it's a great mentality to kind of take it upon yourself. All right, what did I mess up on? What can I improve on? How can I make this a better in the future, or how can I overcome this, and how can I see this ahead of time and totally avoid it in the first place? I think that's a way better mindset than it's the system, it's because of this, it's because of that, it's because of this person, because of this group of people, it's because of these entities, they're after me. I don't think that's healthy, and I don't think that's a good thing. Even though there might be bad stuff that happens and it could be justifiable, but and I'll go into kind of different people and different topics about this mentality. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, all this stuff is happening to you. And so what? Like, what are you going to do about it? And if you don't do anything about it, then I mean, you can keep complaining, but odds are it's probably not going to change anything in your for your circumstance, for your situation. So there has to be. I forget who said it. It might have been PBD Patrick Bet David, or maybe Bedrose Coolian. Anyway, Bedrose does have a really good post about it. He talked about, yeah, our president may suck, our government may suck, our economy might be in the toilet, all these bad things. And it's like, all right, but what are you going to do about it? If you're not doing anything about it, then nothing's going to change. And I think PBD said it's he accepts people that he accepts, I think, two types of people. So one person doesn't complain about anything, but doesn't really put it into any action to improve their situation. All right. If you don't do any action, you're not doing anything for yourself, but you don't complain, then all right, cool. You can do you. And the second person he'll accept is someone who may complain, but they are changing something. about their circumstance and they're putting action in order to make a change. So you might complain about whatever. Let's just say you may be complaining about, oh, I deserve to be paid more for my position or something like that. Yeah, you can say that, and I think it's fine if you're working towards making more money. You're pursuing more education to be more qualified for something to earn more money in the future and have a career. But the absolute unacceptable part is someone who complains and doesn't do anything about it. You're just a complainer. You're not doing anything about it. There's no action involved. Sorry, that was a kind of a long-winded intro, but that's kind of the premise and kind of what's going on in the world and why I kind of wanted to talk about it. All right, this next part is what is victim mentality? Because I mean, it's a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot. You see it in a lot of headlines and news and a lot of YouTube videos, and you'll see it in this one. But what is it? So I typically I feel like I'm kind of doing a church talk. It's like you get a talk on the topic of faith or scripture study or keeping the Sabbath day holy or something like that. And you're like, all right, I'm going to start off with the definition of it. But that's just kind of how I'm wired, how my brain works. All right. And I think it's good to establish some sort of common ground. It's like, all right, do we agree on the definition of something? Because if you can't agree on the definition of something, then you can't really have a conversation about it because no one knows what addition or what you're actually talking about. So I looked up what the definition was and what it actually is, and many definitions, but kind of the premise of what victim mentality is people who constantly blame other people or situations for events in their life, and that's typically negative things, bad things that happen in your life. And it was interesting. I was doing some research on it as well, learning more about it, kind of its history, and a lot of studies and definitions share that it's not it's actually an acquired personality trait, like from Wikipedia itself. And granted, people might not think Wikipedia is a trusted source, but anyway, a quote from Wikipedia, and they list it as an acquired personality trait, which I thought was interesting. It's like it's acquired; it's not just like inherent in someone's chemical makeup or in their personality or whatever. It's something that's acquired. It's something that is developed over time. So it's one of those negative traits. There's a lot of positive traits that you can develop: hard work, integrity, honesty. But there's also negative ones. Being the victim is supposedly one of them. And I added in here as well, kind of the stuff I was reading. I typically see that it's typically fueled by fear in particular, and definitely anger behind it, just because just like anything, kind of peel back the onion, see what's really causing the problem. It's usually rooted in fear and anger, and that's typically, I'd say, most negative personality traits. Just because they're afraid of a certain consequence or a certain outcome, therefore they're not willing to take responsibility. They don't want to have the consequence of whatever plays out, or they're angry at a certain person, a certain entity, a certain group. And because of that, they lash out and blame them on stuff. It may technically be justified, it may not be justified, but in the end, you're basically I kind of phrase it like this: you're sacrificing long-term negative outcomes for short-term positive outcomes, or essentially making yourself feel better. Because you can harp on this stuff, it makes you feel better in the short term, but in the long term, does your situation change? Probably not. So do something about it instead. So that kind of goes from why people play this card. Why do people have this mentality, have this acquired personality trait, how it's been developed throughout their life, through their experiences? A couple different things. One, I see it typically as a way of coping, just like many other things. It's a way of turning, kind of facing outward instead of looking inward for when bad stuff happens. Uh, Like I said, to avoid consequences, to avoid responsibility, a way of self acceptance. And there's a difference between there's like I'd say positive self acceptance and or self real I'd say self realization and being happy and content, being happy with yourself, but not you don't want to be content with yourself. So it's like a negative self acceptance where people, especially nowadays, it's a big topic going around. It's like people are accepting themselves for who they are, even when it's not the best for them. And it's mainly, like I said, it's mainly rooted in fear and anger, um, that they're not willing to change and they're not willing to improve on themselves, even though they know it's deep down inside it probably is good for them. For example, one big one is uh, there's a lot of overweight, obese people in the United States, and that's just the nature of it. It's like the stats, I think 50 something percent of people are obese. And obviously, this is going off of the definition of body mass index, so BMI. I can't remember the exact numbers. It's like, I want to say it's like 28 or above 28 or 30 plus on the BMI index. It's you're obese. So this is kind of where they're stemming this definition of obese, like 50 something percent, maybe 40% of the US population is categorized as the obese, and then three-fourths, so 75% of people are like overweight or something like that. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. And people, and obviously, like, there are different factors that weigh into that. Technically, I'm overweight because it doesn't take into account muscle. But I had this conversation with some family. I'm like, I wouldn't suggest most majority of the population. Think of the average person. They're probably not very muscular, if I have much muscle at all. So, um, it's like self acceptance. You know you're overweight. You know you should lose it, but it's like you don't want to, and because of that, you're saying I'm fine the way I am. And for those people, if they want to do it, great. But I wouldn't say that's necessarily the best thing for them. We constantly want to improve. We constantly want to get better. Be happy, but don't be content. And the kind of the last thing, and I said this at the very beginning, but people sacrifice long-term negative outcomes for short-term positive feelings. I think that's a better way of putting it. By playing the victim, and we see these being manifested in different ways. The manifestations of this mentality: no accountability, blame others for your failures, shortcomings. You have a constant negative attitude, and you'll see, and these are not if you have because people have some of these like from time to time people have these. I mean, I have these. Like, there's times where I'm not accountable. There's times where I do tend to blame others. There's times where I have a negative attitude. That's just kind of life, but you never want to stay constantly in those areas. You don't want to constantly not be accountable. You don't want to constantly blame others. You don't want to constantly have a negative attitude. Life is like ebbs and flows. Life is a roller coaster. Life is a highway, as my as Rascal Flatts would say. Good wise words. But it's a roller coaster. It goes up and down throughout life. You have great experiences, you're on cloud nine, and then you have terrible experiences, you're rock bottom. But the more you can stay even keel, it's kind of like the average of those peaks and those valleys. That's kind of what day-to-day life is. But the key is to not stay at the lowest points and not necessarily stay at the highest points, because the highest points you're eventually going to come down. It's to constantly be moving upward in a positive direction. So those are a few manifestations. A couple more: powerlessness, outward looking rather inward looking. Which, I mean, typically when you hear that phrase, it's like outward looking, like, oh, I'm looking out for others. But instead of helping others, it's more like blaming others, and looking and not looking inward to solve your problems. And it's interesting because I was having a conversation with with my mom, a few other family members as well, about like narcissists, and I've talked about it, I think, in my last stream a little bit as well. That'd be an interesting. one to talk about, maybe potentially have a guest on that specializes a little bit in, uh, has a little bit more technical background on narcissism, not necessarily narcissists themselves, but has studied it. That's what I meant. But I think you can see a lot of the similar traits in a narcissist as well, as with this victim mentality, looking outward for blame rather than inward, and fueled, like I said, keep going back to fueled by fear and anger. They're not willing to humble themselves, to get better, to accept that maybe they did make a mistake, maybe they were in the wrong, and move forward and improve themselves and get better. And by doing so, not only do you help yourself get better, but you can share your story. I'm a big proponent of sharing experiences and helping people. Like, I love, today I had lunch with some people from my church, some people I share callings with, and we're talking about just experiences, and we've done lots of things like church things together, but we haven't really had a little bit more personal experiences, sharing kind of like what we like to do, our hobbies, and experiences behind those things. So it was great to be able to get that experience from them and learn from them and see what they're about, see what kind of makes them tick, see what they think their purpose is and what they want to accomplish in life. It was a really cool experience, and I love doing stuff like that. Just catching up with people, learning more about them, and then therefore you kind of learn more about other people, see what allows them to be successful, allows them to win in life, and then you can copy that. That's the cool thing about life. You can learn from people, you can copy it, and it's collectively everyone can improve their lives and kind of share the best things that have been successful. Obviously, everyone's different, and not everything, one thing doesn't work necessarily for everyone, but you can try it out and you can see what works for you. You can see what doesn't work for you, and you can kind of pass that along and help other people as well. So those are a few manifestations of the victim mentality. Why is it so prevalent in society? I talked about it a little bit in the beginning, like kind of how it's played a relatively big part in today's society. Why has it become so prevalent, and why are so many people using it and turning towards it? Because, I mean, if you were to, and like I said, I said this on my last stream, I'll probably say it a million times before or afterwards as well. But it's like people tend to not just jump to blaming other people, or not just jumping to doing these extreme things, or adopting extreme mentalities or practices. It's typically a path along the way. And it's not everyone, I mean, no one wants to be a victim. No one wants to constantly cry about stuff. I mean, some people might like they can do them. But some people might constantly like to cry about stuff. But majority of people don't like to cry about stuff. They like to win at stuff. They like to win in life. They like to win in competition. They like to kind of be the driving force behind their own success and their own the good stuff that happens in life, right? So people don't necessarily want to default to this stuff, but because it has become so prevalent, so I guess acceptable, acceptable is the right word. Acceptable in society, that you can kind of do it, get away. It's like the kid who cries and cries, but the reason why he cries and throws a fit, a tantrum as a toddler, even as a teenager, is because they eventually get what they want then. And that's the same thing with this. People who, it's like the boy who cried wolf. If you cry wolf and you keep getting the response that you want, then you're gonna keep doing it. It's just in people's nature. People tend to continue doing stuff that yields them positive results. And then thus the opposite is 100% true as well. People tend to stop doing what yields negative results. So that's why, for example, you crash your car into a tree, you injure yourself, or you eat 100 McNuggets in one night. You eat 5 pizzas in one night. You eat Taco Bell for all 3 of your meals. Probably not gonna feel very good, and because of that, you're probably not gonna do it again, just because you don't wanna keep repeating negative results that end up not working in your favor in the end. But you will continue to do things that yield you good results, positive results. So why is it so prevalent in society? It's the easy way out. That same principle I just explained. People get a reaction out of other people from blaming other people, from saying it's not their fault. They get compassion for themselves. They get people pandering to them, and because of that, they feel better about themselves, and that's why they keep doing it. And ultimately, that's kind of like the big reason why this whole thing is a thing, and why people adopt this mentality of blaming other people and not improving themselves is because they what's the word for it? They basically feel better about themselves, and they get a dopamine rush from it typically, and because of that, they continue doing it. It's the easy way out when all said and done. All right, and everyone is doing it. Like I said, it's very prevalent in social media. A lot of news articles see people crying wolf about stuff, whether and like I said, it doesn't mean that bad stuff doesn't happen in this world, and it doesn't mean we need to help improve things just because of the race I am, just because of the gender I am, just because of this. I'm not getting the promotion I want. I'm not getting accepted into the school I want. That I think that's a load of garbage. And where there might be definitely some truth to that, it's like, all right, cool. Then what? All right, maybe I might have a hard time on the basketball team because I'm shorter than all the other guys. All right, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to complain? And there needs to be a league for 6 foot under people. Naturally, is pretty fun if anyone's tried it. I'm like the tallest one out of all of them. Sometimes they lower the rims. And you can dunk and stuff. Kind of fun, but that differs from my actual point. But what was I saying? I was saying that what are you gonna do about it? Like, yeah, I'm short for a basketball player. What am I gonna do about it? I'm gonna learn how to play really good defense. I'm gonna learn how to be a knockdown shooter. That way, where I'm open, I can hit a 3 pointer. I can drive to the basket. I'm gonna do all these things to improve. Like, yeah, I might be short. I might be a little bit physically disadvantaged from all the other players, but I have all these other skills that make me a very great commodity, great asset for the team. I may not be the best rebounder, but I could be really good at boxing out if I'm short. And I typically have a little bit more leverage. So that can improve my rebounding, even though I do lack some height. And so that's one example. Big sports guy, basketball guy. One kind of story, kind of where things didn't work out my favor. And I, like many people, we live really good lives. I had a really good family growing up. I had a good childhood. And we weren't necessarily rich per se. We were middle class. I didn't get everything I wanted, but anything I really needed was taken care of. I was fortunate enough to be in that situation. And I was relatively talented at everything. And typically as a kid, yeah, you try stuff that you may not be good at, and you kind of stop doing that. I played soccer, was good at soccer, very successful. I played basketball, very successful in basketball. I was one of the best players growing up on all my teams. Baseball, I sucked. I started really late and I stopped playing after 1 year. So typically what happens when you're not very good at something. But you kind of find the stuff you're good at and you continue doing that throughout your childhood. And a lot of people like myself, they just, I guess, naturally are good at stuff. And tend to be very successful. So very successful in school, uh, very successful in sports, very successful socially as well. And when you reach times in your life, because everyone does reach times in their life where things don't come as easily, things might be harder. You might not be good at something, but you can't just give up. I mean, you can, but it kind of shows what kind of character you have, and you'd rather take the easy way, something that you're naturally good at, not develop your skill. But there are times where you run into obstacles, you run into things you might not be good at, or positions you might be a little bit disadvantaged, and you work and you overcome that obstacle, you overcome that advantage, and you come out on top. So one of the big turning points in my life to kind of have that mentality and have like, hey, I can do hard stuff, and I can, when I reach a new obstacle, something else in my life that's really hard, I might be kind of complaining, might have a negative attitude about. I think back on those hard times that I have overcome. My cookie jar, David Goggins cookie jar, all the hard stuff I put on the shelf. When times get tough, I can pull that out. I've done all this hard stuff. Like, man, this ain't nothing. So one of the first times that's happened in my life was I was a sophomore in high school. Obviously played basketball. So freshman year, I was on the A team, like the top freshman team, starting, played a lot, was very successful. My sophomore year, they totally overhauled the coaching staff. New head coach, new assistant coaches, everything. So basically, everyone had a clean slate, which is great for some people and not so great for other people. So unfortunately for me, it wasn't great because my coaches loved me freshman year. They knew me from seventh grade, eighth grade. They watched us play middle school basketball, very successful. But then come my sophomore year, 10th grade, whole new coaches. They didn't know anything about me, anything about my history. And they see me play. And granted, and I can't remember if I had a bad day or whatever during tryouts, but supposedly they didn't like what they see. And like I said, I am a little bit on the shorter side, 5'11", 6 foot. So for basketball, it's not a big advantage. And this was for the JV team. So the JV1 team, the top team. And I mean, even I was trying out for varsity, like based off of my performance freshman year, if my coaches would have stayed the same, I believe I would have been on varsity. But that wasn't the case because we had a whole lot of new coaches. But I look back on it, I'm grateful for the experience because even if I made varsity my sophomore year, I probably wouldn't have played that much. So it ended up working out. So it's JV, it was like second or third day of tryouts, maybe the second day, and they kind of like drew up the teams like, all right, based off of these past 2 days, here's who's on JV1 team, who's on JV2, and here's who's cut. I mean, I didn't get cut, but they put me on the list for JV2, and I was very, I wouldn't say maybe offended. I was like, I felt very disrespected because like I knew I was a a starter on JV1, but they put me on JV2, and I did not accept the fact, and I didn't necessarily put blame on them just because they were a whole new coaching staff. And maybe at the time I was negative, that for sure. Well, I was blaming them. Yeah, I shouldn't be on JV2. I should be on JV1. I'm way more skilled, way more talented. I put in way more work than these other guys that made it above me. But uh, I mean, I could have just ended at that. Stayed at JV2, pouted, complained, and do nothing about it. But that's not what I did. I was determined. I was like, hey, I'm going to prove these guys wrong. I should be on JV1. And at that time, it was very competitive. So maybe not. I could be a starter, might not be a starter, might be on the bench, but definitely worth some playing time for sure on the JV1 team. So they called the JV2 team out for practice in one gym, and they called the JV1 team in another gym. And I didn't go with the JV2 team. I went with the JV1 team, even though my name was on the list for the JV2 team. I was like, screw it. I'm good enough. I'm going to show them. I went to the gym for the JV1 team. And they kind of like mentioned it, but they just kind of rolled with it. And long story short, I proved them wrong. I was a part of the JV1 team. And not only that, I was started pretty much the whole year. I was one of the better players, and no downplay to my teammates. I love my teammates. Um, and yeah, I had a very successful season. Very good. So that's a prime example. And I don't try to share this stuff just to like boast about myself and look how good I am and look how resilient I am, type of a thing. I share these experiences because I mean, other people go through similar things. They don't know what to do. Like when I was that young kid, if I didn't make that decision, I could have made a different decision, and my whole life could have been way different. My whole basketball career could have been different. But hearing stuff like this, especially for young men and guys at a young age or a younger age are kind of in a troubled spot in life, then it gives them confidence. Hopefully, it gives you confidence that you can kind of do the same thing. You can be resilient. Times might be tough. You might be negative. You might be blaming other people. And if that's happening for a short period of time, that's okay. But the goal is to not stay like that. Don't have this mentality constantly and do something about it. Put some put some action behind those words. A lot of people are all talk and they don't walk the walk. Walk the walk as much as you talk the talk. So that's kind of one of my experiences, one of my key experiences that I constantly draw back on and kind of it sets the tone for set the tone for a lot of the stuff that happened in my life. Um so sorry, that was a really long story, but uh we're talking about why this victim mentality is so prevalent in society. I'll have one point here. Accountability is definitely playing a lesser and lesser role in modern society. And that's definitely true. Like, think of we're in a modern society where it's the quick fix. It's, yeah, I made a mistake, but I want it just the mistake gone. I want it to live normal life. I want to get rich quick. I want a six pack quick. I want to, if I married the wrong person, I immediately want a divorce. I don't want anything to do with it. Um, I accidentally have a kid. I want to abort the kid. I want to get rid of it. Everyone wants the quick fix for stuff, and that's not healthy. And obviously, modern technology, modern science is great. Like, I'm not I wouldn't be a proponent of like, oh, if someone gets sick, like, all right, you can't take medicine. You have to grind it out. You have to do it like our pioneer ancestors did. Like, no, no, not at all. Use as much of modern technology, modern medicine to your advantage for sure. But if you do something that's kind of like life altering, make a life altering decision, like you have to assume accountability and responsibility, not blame someone else on it and not want a quick fix and just be washed clean of everything, especially if you were the main culprit in that bad decision. It's the spot every time. Pineapple, coconut, clear American. But people want the quick fix. People want life with no consequences. And if you make certain decisions, consequences are going to come regardless. And just because you're a certain person, come from a certain background, because you come from a certain situation, doesn't mean you're absolvent, you're absent. You don't need to experience that consequence. But so accountability is becoming less and less a priority and less of a role in modern society. People need to take more accountability. And the last point, this is a great one. Pastor Bet David says it all the time. I don't know what the exact quote comes from. I kind of want to look it up. Let me look it up real quick. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's a quote. Okay, it was a quote from post-apocalyptic novel. Oh, from a post-apocalyptic novel by author G. Michael Hopf. Interesting. But the quote, I'm sure many of you heard it. If you haven't, this is a great quote. But I'm sure you've heard of hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. So it's basically a cycle. So it starts off with hard times, create strong men, just because in order to survive those hard times, people have to man up, they have to be resilient, they have to grind in order to overcome those hard times. So only the strong men will survive. Only the strong ones will survive. And then once the hard times are over, because the 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 remaining strong men have overcome that and made the world a better place and a better place for everyone to live in, it creates good times. So if you kind of think of the the Roaring Twenties, for example, for those of you who need to brush up on your U.S. history, it's a very very prosperous time in the United States. I mean, you think of also, let's just say the '90s, the computer age, the tech age, before the dot-com bubble and the great financial crisis, life was good. Everyone was being successful. Everyone was making money. Things were great. He'd even say that right before COVID, and good times happen. People get kind of soft, and their kids. It's like the people who become entrepreneurs or become very successful in business and very successful financially, and they set their kids up. They make a lot of money. Think of athletes. They make a lot of money, and they might set their kids up, and then you go down one or two generations, and they've kind of their kids might have kind of recognized the grind their mom or their dad or their parents had to go through in order to create that wealth. But you get down one, two, three generations. That's why majority of millionaires or people that have generational, quote unquote, generational wealth, that tends to be squandered within two or three generations, just because those kids, those grandkids, those great grandkids, because they had all this money, because they had everything they ever wanted and everything they ever asked for, they didn't really have to work hard to get anything good in life. They already had it. Then they don't have any resilience. They don't have any work ethic. They just ask for it and they receive it. But that's not really how life in the real world works for most people. So they don't have a backbone. They don't have necessarily a good work ethic. And then say something happens, the family business fails, the stock prices drop, the real estate goes underwater. Anything could happen. War breaks out. Then these kids who kind of grew up with everything, they never had to work a day in their life. Then they have zero skills. So they don't have any wealth. They don't have any money anymore. They have to go out in the workplace and they have to create value and they have to build their own thing. They can't do it because they're growing up in these good times, and those good times, because it was good, they didn't have to build any skills and do anything for themselves. So it creates them into weak men. And then if there's a whole society of these weak people because of the good times and they were babied and they didn't have to do any work, it'll be really interesting to see what my generation's like once we're our parents' age. Just because, are people going to work? A lot of millennials, a lot of Gen Zs, they don't like to work. They like to do what they want. They don't like to work hard in particular. So, and they're not really great at communicating. Everyone's really good at technology, which is a big plus, but they can't really have face-to-face conversations. They're not well spoken. They can have intellectual interactions with people without coming off as awkward or uncomfortable. So, we'll see how my generation is in the next 20, 30, 40 years. It'll be interesting. Uh, and kind of ending the quote, like weak men create hard times. So, if there's a whole society of these weak people who didn't really have to do anything growing up, they didn't have to work, they didn't have to create, be diligent, work hard, they didn't have to create this hardworking mentality, and maybe they were all victims, but they have the victim mentality, then the economy, the country, your communities aren't going to thrive, just because everyone wants to be pandered to, everyone wants free stuff, and we're kind of seeing that today. So we'll see how it plays out. But those are kind of the big reasons why it's so prevalent in society, and I'm sure there's many others as well. But I'm all about not just talking about the problems, because I mean that's really important. We need to talk about issues. We need to find out what the bad stuff in the world's happening, what the good stuff in the world that's happening. But more importantly, all right, great, we have this bad stuff that probably should be changed or improved upon. We need to put some action behind it. All right, what are we going to do? What's the solution? So I'm not just for the descriptive information, but I'm for the prescriptive information as well. So, how to overcome this victim mentality? I have several points. First, it comes from just learning, understanding, dissecting the problem, where it's rooted from. Like I said, it just doesn't happen overnight for most people. It's usually a slow path that people go through, constant, fueled by fear and anger, and they just eventually blame, 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 blame. And they get good results from blaming people, so they keep doing it. So education, and learning from others. And a big thing I put in quotes right here is talked about in my purpose stream, but you need to understand your gospel purpose. I think more people understand gospel, religion, moral foundations, and kind of like the purpose you have in this life, then the better you are because it puts everything way better perspective. So understanding your gospel purpose, we're here for a reason. To we're spiritual beings having an earthly experience or human's experience of it's a very popular quote that goes around. But we're here to experience life, grow, learn, and teach other people, serve other people, and then eventually return to our Heavenly Father. So understanding your gospel purpose. And then also on top of that, like I said, two different purposes. Gospel purpose, it's kind of collective in general for everyone. And your individual purpose, that's what's unique to you. So in this life, in this earthly human experience, like what is it that you're supposed to do with your life, with your talents and your abilities? How can you provide for yourself and your future family or current family and the people that are close to you that you care about? And how can you spread and impact other people positively as well? Just because we live in society, we live on earth, we weren't meant to just live isolate individual lives just by ourselves in isolation and without an interaction with anyone else. We're supposed to live in packs and tribes and families and societies and cities, countries. We're supposed to live together with other people in a human society. In order to do that effectively, we need to learn how to work with each other, work for each other, and really have a positive impact on other people and help other people. As well as when we help other people, we should be helping ourselves as well. So understanding your gospel and your individual purpose. And then also, well, once you have been educated, you have learned, all right, you need to tie it into how it applies to your life. And this is a big gospel thing as well. It's like, all right, it's great that you learn all this stuff. I mean, even in school, you think about, all right, it's great that I know the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and Shakespeare is talking about someone being as hot as the summer sun or whatever. Some like random stuff that honestly doesn't matter. All right, how does this apply to my life? All right, doesn't then all right, maybe it was kind of pointless information, but all right, I learned what taxes were. I understood how those work. I understand how to pay a mortgage or what a mortgage is, how to buy a house, how to buy a car, how to build a business, how to market myself, how to brand myself. That stuff has application to every single person. So it's like, all right, take what I learned. How does it apply to my life? How can I use it to my benefit? How can I use it to benefit other people, impact other people positively? That's what you need to do next. How does what you learned apply to your life and your circumstance, and how can it improve your circumstance more specifically? All right, and the third thing, self improvement. Like I said, big proponent of self improvement. How does this make my life better? How can it make my life better? What do I need to do in order to put these steps into my life? What actions do I need to take? What is the result I'm going to get from those actions? And then how can I help other people achieve the same thing? That's the whole part of self improvement and spreading on that the ideology and the positive outcome of the self improvement. It's ultimately becoming the best version of yourself. All right, and these are some small things that kind of help with these three main ones. Small daily wins create momentum in life. Like you might hear this all the time. There's this actually I follow this one page on motivation page on Instagram, and I love motivation videos. I typically wasn't necessarily the person that's like, all right, I need a video to pump me up type of a thing in order to kind of do stuff in my life. I was never really that type of person. I kind of have that internal drive. Of course, I do need reminders every now and then. Who doesn't? But there is this one video. I think it was this admiral at a graduation. I want to say it was a graduation for the Naval Academy. I mean, he's all dressed up in his all his medals and his stars and stuff. So that's why I'm kind of assuming. But he's like, if you want to make an impact and a change in your life, it all starts with first thing in the morning, waking up, making your bed. And that's what I would classify as a small win. Small win, I would define as something you accomplished in your day that creates momentum and creates a positive impact in future, to create momentum and to be a catalyst for future actions in your day. Sorry, that was kind of jumbled, but yeah, I would define small wins as small tasks that you accomplish in your day that create momentum and become a catalyst for you to accomplish even more in your day. That's how I would put it. So these small daily wins create momentum in your day. For example, a couple of mine are: you wake up, I drink some water, I weigh myself, I track my weight, I make my bed, I go to the gym. The gym is a really big one for me. If and there are times where I don't go to the gym in the morning, but I try to do that every day because it really sets the tone for my day. Makes me feel accomplished, and that's also the reason why it's important to do these small daily wins, because it builds confidence in yourself. Just because, all right, after I went to the gym, I can literally do nothing all day. I probably won't do anything. I won't do nothing because I kind of already set the tone for the day, and I'll be motivated to do the stuff I need to, and the extra stuff that might not need to do, but I want to do, and will put me further ahead in life. But I could literally do nothing the rest of the day after going to the gym. And even if that's the case, and some days they're I've just kind of vegged out and kind of watch some Netflix and just chilled, But I could do nothing the rest of the day, but I have accomplished something today. I went to the gym. I made my bed. I read my scriptures. I drank my water. Even if I did nothing the rest of the day, I've accomplished something. So that's and that gives you motivation. It gives you confidence to continue doing stuff throughout the day. So the small wins create momentum in life, not only from day to day, but it carries over from week to week, year to year, and decade to decade. And the more wins you can stack up, this tiny you need to focus on the small wins, because if you focus on the small stuff, it leads up to the big stuff. It's really hard to do the really big things. It's really hard to, all right, I lost 50 pounds, or I got a six pack, or I made six figures, or I made seven figures. It's really hard to accomplish that stuff all at once. So it's like, all right, these are the small things I can build up to for me to eventually accomplish those big goals. So small daily wins matter. And then last thing, how to overcome victim mentality. Get an uplifting, accountable tribe of men, specifically for my dudes out there, because that's kind of my main audience I'm targeting. But get a tribe of guys that can keep you accountable and that you constantly are following up with each other. And this can be physical people you physically see every single day, or it can be digitally. I mean, we live in the digital age. People move to different cities and might not have a ton of actual physical friends, but the internet's a great place. You can have role models. You can join men's groups online. Obviously, the ideal is to be in person and to be you can be physically see and converse with one another, but you can do this online as well. And the important stuff is, I mean, a lot of people have friends, a lot of people have their guys that they hang out with, but do you have guys that will build you up and hold you accountable and stuff? You have a certain goal. Hey man, you said you're gonna go to the gym every single day this week. You're trying to work out more. Like let's hit the gym together. Let's go. Like I want you to improve. I want you to accomplish your goals, and I'm here for you. Type of a thing. Um, and just to be accountable and help you achieve. Because I mean, who doesn't want yourself to win, of course, but then you want your other friends to win as well. So let's just all win together, type of a mindset. I think that's what people need. And people typically that do have victim mentality, they do think they're alone, they're isolated. That's why they blame other people. They try to have people pander them, console them, is because they feel lonely, they feel afraid, and they want people around them. They want people to pay attention to them. But this is the wrong way of doing it. And the last thing I'm going to share, unfortunately, the last thing I'm going to share, unfortunately, I don't think I can share my screen. Like I said, I need to figure out how to do that. But it's a quote from Denzel Washington. I think it's super powerful. Denzel Washington, one of the greatest actors of all time. was in Remember the Giants, was in all these crazy good movies. American Gangster. Like I can name off a ton of different movies. Um, my mind isn't really working right now. It's been a long day, so I can't name off a ton of movies, but some very significant movies. And I love how based he is and how well he understands like how the actual world works. Because here's this black guy, like obviously terrible stuff has happened to black people in the past, but he's not focusing on what's happened in the past. He's focusing on what's ahead of him and for people like him, people that are in the black community. And he's all about, yeah, it might be unfair, but so what? What are we going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? How are you going to improve your situation? So let me play this soundbite.
Diversity. I'm just wondering, what do you think about that? I don't have to think about it. I've lived it. I've been the guy at the Oscars without my name being called. I've been the guy at the Oscars when my name is called. I've been the guy at the Oscars when everybody thought they was going to call my name and they didn't. I've lived it. So, what would you say to the people who are looking at this process and saying it's unfair? Yeah, and so what?
What?
Give up? If you're looking for an excuse, you'll find one. In race, you can find it wherever you like. You can't live like that. You just do the best you can do.
Boom. And we'll end it at that. Denzel with the mic drop. But the thing is, bad stuff happens to everyone. You never know who's going through a rough time, and you need to help them out. But hard stuff's happened to you, then all right, bad stuff might have just happened, and so what? What are you gonna do about it? That's the whole premise. Prove yourself, and then help other people improve as well. Like I said, you want to win, I want to win, everyone wants to win, so let's all win together. All right, and with that, as with everything, you know the punchline. Try to help you guys get stronger, smarter, healthier, and wealthier. So follow for more streams, follow for more tips. All right, good night. I need to eat some food. It's 8:30. Haven't eaten anything. Got to post one more thing for my Buff Asian channel. I should have stamped my outro, but that's okay. All right, catch y'all later.